With that amount of flow, going back in and using the same amount of, the same process that was used before, and that was pressure injecting a bentonite grout solution into the ground. I can only say that you would expect the same thing in 15 years. I'm 90 years old, so in 15 years I'll be dead and gone anyway, so I could have recommended it, but I didn't. I've had experience with the polymer in a different application. It was more of a structural application, but it does the same thing in the structural application, but just with tweaking some of the chemistry, I would imagine, versus what Stuart's going to talk about. But the amount of swell and the art that Stuart has, and I've read a lot of his stuff and done some research on my own, but this seems like a very viable method to go ahead and slow down that seep. I don't know that we'll ever shut it off 100%, but the idea there is to slow it down the best you can so people can enjoy the lake again. I don't know where to go from here other than to turn it over to Stuart and let him discuss it, but he's brought some, I don't know if he's passed the cupcakes around there, but he's got some pretty impressive samples here to show you what would be actually happening.
So this is our polyurethane foam. It expands between 40 and 50 times its size, between 9 seconds and 2 minutes with being in direct contact with water. So what the process would be for us is we would come, we do a dye test. We dump maybe 100 gallons of dye or 50 gallons of dye down it, and we would time how long it would take from the time that the dye went in till the dye came out. Once we did that, we would adjust our catalyst for the foam based on that, and we would start by backing up where that water is coming from and stopping it at about 3/4 of the distance, and then we would continue to dump it into the both sinkholes until it came all the way up to the top. One of the big benefits about this stuff is it is virtually indestructible. The only thing that has been proven over time to deteriorate this product is UV light, and underground I think you're safe there. It's in every aspect of the way, it's the most economical, it's the quickest solution, and the biggest thing is it's NSF and SI certified for direct contact with drinking water and food. So this is not harmful to anything, period. And you know, I think that the best way for us to fix the lake would be using something of this nature. You know, I'll bring this up for you guys to look at, and then I have also brought some of it so that you guys can see how it works.
Kevin, what's your flow at right now?
Right now, we're 145.
Down from 170.
So down from 177.
To the one. This one,
All right. And this is like science class.
Yeah.
It is. It's pretty fascinating.
Is there going to be a test?
No.
Stuart, when you're doing your little show and tell there, my question, and probably be helpful for you to kind of address it in your example there, is the difference in flows. Is the high flows that we had before, or is the low flow that we have now, or either one of those flows more advantageous than the other? And with that flow, will we be blowing right on by?
No, and that's the benefit with the catalyst and being and why it's so important that we test it with the dye first is because we can make it so this stuff starts to transform within 9 seconds, you know? And
So it's gonna get hung up somewhere.
yeah, and you'll see once this stuff is in action, you'll understand what I mean by that. It is a very fast acting polyurethane, and with the fast acting catalyst, it really moves.
What's your volume there now?
Okay, so that is 9.5 tablespoon or teaspoons, excuse me, and get something to start with. So this is already pre-mixed with the catalyst at about a 50 well, it's a 5%, which means that it's half of the fastest it could go. So if I doubled the catalyst, then that would be the quickest that it would react. And you'll see, and also to a point, the other thing that changes the reaction time is going to be the temperature of the water and the outdoor temperature. All of which we can adjust somewhat. We can heat water and inject water down in those crafts, you know, and then also heat the polyurethane as well, so that we can do this. I mean, they've done this stuff in the dead of winter in North Dakota, South Dakota. I mean, all over the world, this stuff's been used since. This product itself has been used since 2010. So it's a pretty phenomenal product. So now I'll just put a little more of a capful in here. Wait till it starts changing. That's because the water is so cold.
And again, just the temperature is just going to affect
The speed.
the speed of what
Right.
it
Correct.
swells.
Yep.
So you want a slow callus when you first put it in, because it's gonna go on this distance.
Correct.
Correct.
That's correct.
And then
Yeah.
change it.
So we'll start at maybe a 1 or 2%, and then we'll gradually step it back so that we.
You don't wanna plug the beginning and then.
Correct.
Exactly.
I have two quick questions.
Yes, sir.
How, and I think you've answered them both just by it will have no effect on my house has a well to it, and I'm on the lake.
Mm-hmm.
It won't hurt.
No, sir. It's right here is your certifications. Let's see. I believe.
Sir, with all due respect,
Yeah.
your word to me is good enough for that.
Okay. Wonderful. Well, I appreciate that. No, it's perfectly safe.
You would not be doing this and telling me that in front of all these people and still trying to do it, so your word's good enough for me.
All right. Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Kurt, you would mention and maybe talk a little bit about, obviously, there's a main flow going down through the fissure, and where it fractures out and things like that, spalling, if you would,
Yep.
for lack of a better term. The great part about this, and I'll let you speak more about it, is when it's still in the liquid form, it's actually going to find
Yeah.
those things and go into that.
Yeah. What we would do is, and that's part of the reason for the injection of the water is we're gonna put more pressure down in there, like the max of what it would do. And then that way, it's gonna push this foam to all of the cracks and all of the spots. So
My other question is, what type of equipment will you use to do that? Because if you bring in well drilling where you're gonna wake up half the world around here. Yeah, but if they know beforehand, they'll expect it.
Well, and that's the beauty of this. There's only two mechanized products that we're gonna need. One is gonna be a pump, which we can use if we need to. We can use an electric one, in order to do that. And the other is a hammer drill. We'll be driving rods down into the ground once we fill in, which I didn't speak about. I will a little more in depth. So it's not a very invasive as far as sound goes.
Yeah, I'm just saying too, I can tell people they're gonna bring in a pneumatic drill.
So it's
And
like an impact hammer.
Exactly.
You know, it's
So-
like
so that
if you've
all of
had
a
a
sudden
tire
you don't
change
have-
and you've heard the
Yeah, you
impact
don't have
wrenches,
half the
that
world trying to
hammer.
figure out, who's firing off the 20 gauge.
Right. No, so it would be probably a generator and then this pump. So we'll pump the water down in there.
You got my two questions answered.
All right, good.
No, because I'll just tell like Kenny and the rest of them that I deal with all the time that you can bring in an impact hammer and a generator. Call it a day.
Yep, yeah, exactly. And so what we would do is our estimations by looking at this would be, between 250 and 500 gallons, somewhere in there, of product that we would inject down in there. And then once we got it to where it came all the way up to the top of the sinkhole, we would then take rods back towards the dam in the same direction, kind of in the same plane as the sinkhole and where it comes out of the spring box. And we'll drive rods down on the ground about 10, 11 feet in a pattern down through there and see if we find any soft spots in there, any crevices. And if we do, we inject a little bit of water and then we inject more of the product.
How do you mix the stuff once it gets in the water, like you mixed it right there?
So you don't have to. That's the reason that I did that is because it's not running through water, right?
So the running water would be...
The running water, and you don't even have to mix it. It's just more because I put only a capful in there, just for, just to show what it's like, So here's the difference, right? This is the same amount with 70-degree water, right? This is the same as this, but with, cold water. So it makes a difference as far as that goes, but that's still only 8 teaspoons,
Is the smaller one more dense, or so?
No, it's
is it like bread?
It's the same. It's not really any difference. This just expands, expanded a little more, and that's about the only difference of it. The nice part about this stuff also is, if you imagine that this goes into the ground and it's surrounded by rocks and soil, where there is loose soil and this stuff expands, it's going to compact the soil around it more. And where there's rocks and other things in there, even if it's sedimentary that's got cracks in it, it's going to completely engulf that stuff anywhere where water's going. We're going to mix it to such an effect, and the way it's going to be running through there is that's going to get into 90% of these areas that water is being traveled. And anywhere it's not, it's expanding between 40 and 50 times its size. So
your plan is to inject it in where the sinkholes are inside the lake?
Yep, so what we would do is the sinkholes here and here, we would dump the material down here, right? And we would dump it and dump it and dump it. But so let me back up. I'll slow down and do the first part of the process. We get there, we bring our product up above here, we gravity feed it into a drum, 55 gallons, where we mix the catalyst with it after we have done our test to see how long it takes to come out of the spring box. Once we've located, we'll also have another person on here, because when I came up here with Gary before, we noticed there was water on this side down here. We do not know if that's related or not, but we'll know with the dye test. And once we do that dye test, we time it, we figure out what it is, and we mix accordingly, and then we start so that it is, right here is about where it's starting to fill and back up. And then gradually, we're gonna probably 20 to 30 gallons at a time, we're gonna be adjusting our catalyst back and back and back and back and back, you know. And by the time we get, I'd say right in here, we're just gonna hit it hard with full catalyst, and we'll dump it, you know, 10 or 15 gallons at a time in there. So it's really forcing itself in there, because you've got this big area in you know, in Mark's report here. I don't know quite, was that like a 40 by 40 area of moist?
Yeah, it's roughly that, but it's not a complete open void.
Right.
40 by 40.
Right.
Yeah.
It's just a larger area that would possibly take more material in order for that to fill. And again, the beauty of that is we're going to hit it hard with the catalyst, because what that's going to do is try and compact and seal up as many cracks as possible in that area. Once it gets all the way back to here, and we're seeing material back at the top of the sinkhole, then what we'll do is we'll come down through here with our rods, and we'll drive the rods down into the ground and see if there's any more areas where we see that is a void. You know, if we find those voids, then we inject more material. And I mean, we're gonna empty it. I mean, that's the thing. And it's a pretty, it's not a very complicated process. The biggest thing is just taking your time, doing it right, making sure that you do that dye test. That is the most important thing, because if you don't know how long, then it's not doing it's not doing the proper job. But you know, we've teamed up with Alchemy Speed Tech. They have 30 years of experience in this stuff. They're front runners in this field. They go all over the world. Our salesman was in Australia last month, doing stuff in Australia with embankments, and they're incredible. And so we're really confident, beyond any doubt, that we're going to be able to take care of this at very little
Kevin,
problem.
it looks like we're below that hole. It's still going down. Is it going out this hole? Do you know?
That's not a hole.
That's not there.
No.
Let's
There's
say
a
it's-
two
holes
right
are back
here.
there, right.
it's-
One here and one here.
Okay, but it's showing here. I'm just wondering, because the water level is still falling. Do you know where
Well,
it's exiting?
Well, there's probably more than one. There's probably more than one leak there.
Okay, so we're gonna fix the
There's gonna
big
be
one.
seepage, yeah. So, it's falling right now, rate of about 3 inches a week, which is really nothing compared to what it was.
And that's part of the beauty of this too, is that once we seal this, it seems like this area here seems to be a part of a much larger void. And if you walk on this side of the pond here, you can see the difference in the rock from one side to the other, and all the material. This is a much sandier area on this side. You get over here, you have much more sedimentary. What other kind of rock is there? It's just
It's all sedimentary.
Yeah,
in
okay.
there. It's just different amounts of carbonate in the variations of geology there. And it's several different layers of geology that are all right there in one little contact. So it's basically a bunch of shards, if you like, that allows water to go through them.
Yeah, so if we are able to just dump in here, and like I said, we'll shoot down in this area, down through in here as needed, and we'll fill this all up. It should do the trick without any hesitation. So.
What kind of turnaround time are you looking at?
So the entire process for injection, or preparation, injection, and cleanup would most likely be between 3 and 5 days. So,
Dude, last time the company moved in for like 3 months. So
no, and that's the beauty of it. Once we have the initial products, I mean, you're not going to really even know that we're there doing it, right? What we'll do, except for us using the generator to jet the water down in there. Other than that, we're no big machine. We'll have a truck parked here. We'll probably have a lull or like a a 4-wheel drive lift so that we can unload the totes and bring them down to here and have a staging area. Then we mix it, we dump it in, and then we go down through here and we drive in our metal stakes between 8 and 10 feet in the ground. And we find a spot, we inject it. Once we do that, we clean up, we bring our totes back, and we're gone.
Do you do the one closer to the dam first or the one behind?
So both of the spots, I'm sorry, I should have been here the whole time. Both of the sinkholes are in this area, right?
Right.
So is this another?
It was,
where there was an original one.
that was
Okay.
back in the 90s.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is the old one.
Yeah.
Here, there's two right here,
Right.
right, within 6-foot proximity of each other. So
One just doesn't have a developed throat.
right.
Yeah.
So so we enter, come down through here, stage right here, inject, and dump our product down in there. We would start with, the goal is, like I was showing everybody over there, we'll do the dye test, we'll have somebody here, because on, I guess, the right side of, I guess you would call that the southern side of the road there, we notice water coming out here, and then over down here by the spring house. And so we'd have people basically all around here looking, maybe 2 or 3 guys, and we'll time from the time that the dye goes in to the time that it comes out. We do our math. Based on that, we've got data sheets that tell us, okay, we need 3% catalyst, or 4%, or 5%, and then we start administering our product down in here, and we fill it on up.
And there is no testing to ensure that it's complete or that it's taken because in theory the water will have stopped, period, correct?
Yes, ma'am, that's correct. And yeah, you should, you'll notice visually, because we're gonna be dumping that down in there, and based on the amount of material that we have, and that we're dumping down in there, we'll know that it's getting somewhere. And once we have the dye that we run in, or that we find that comes out, once that material starts working, if the water slows down there, then we know that then it's
Right.
doing something.
That's
you
what
know?
I thought, but I was
Ex-
just,
Exactly. And what we can also do is, through that process is, after we've done our administering, we can come back, at the end of the last day, do a thorough walkthrough, almost like a grid around these spots, and see if we find any other spots where there's stuff that's still coming out. Because the last thing we want to have to do is unpack and do it all over again,
Right.
and make sure that we get it taken care of.
so you would be looking for any additional seepage or maybe one place sealed up but then pushed it someplace else?
Correct. And, water always finds the path,
The easiest path.
Right. It's always going to go to the next spot if there is
Right.
one. But by the looks of it and from the report, we should be able to dump it in there, and it should stop in all those spots that based off of the report.
Now, part of the dye, what happens if the dye doesn't show up?
If the dye does not show up,
Most expectedly, it's gonna be by the council house or in the bottom lake.
correct.
Or what if it doesn't exit?
If it doesn't exit, we would still dump at full catalyst. So we would dump it so that we know that, we would know, so just right past the dam is where it's gonna fully be fully developed. And then it'll seal it from here back, right? So we know beyond a reasonable doubt, even if we don't see where it's coming out, we just hit it with full catalyst.
What is the maximum size area you can fill with that film?
It depends on, there's so many variables that depends on. Rate of flow, how jagged the stuff is. This stuff sticks to everything. I don't know the maximum size that's been done. I know from the reports I've seen, a 9-foot by 20-foot crack in a dam in Washington State was filled with this stuff.
How many gallons? I think it's kind of a question too.
The largest one that the 720 stock that I'm aware of, and I can go back to the report, but they had one that was doing about 1,000 gallons a minute. It was gushing out, you know. But this stuff, there's many other lines of products that they make that are specialty products that are used for certain applications, and this right here is perfect. That's what it's made for, is these sinkholes.
Okay, so if I may, you said you're not gonna have heavy equipment?
No.
Okay, so are we not going to have a road, where's the water coming from, I guess? How are you
So what we
adjusting water
do is we'll
temperature?
take a pump,
Yeah.
and we'll have it down there, and then we'll put the filter in the middle of the pond, right?
All
The
right.
pond or the lake?
The lake.
Or the lake,
Okay.
excuse me, I'm
That's
sorry.
You mean the puddle?
The puddle, right.
Puddle.
And so then we'd inject it down, you know,
And you're gonna heat that up as necessary as it comes
if we
through that
need to.
pond?
You know, again, that all depends on several different things, but we can. And we can always, again, once we do the dye test and we figure out the time, we can figure out if we even need to heat it up. If it's gonna take 3 minutes to come out,
Right.
that took, 15 seconds, right?
Minute and some to get to that.
Fully, right.
Yes, sir.
But once,
About 16 seconds to start following up.
right, so we'll know then that if it takes that amount of time, then we go there. If we've gotta hit it at full catalyst, then we know that it'll be, like I said, it starts reacting in 9 seconds, it's complete in 19 seconds with 70-degree water.
Okay.
So it's
I think it's important to mention too that we're gonna have the mad scientists from Alchemy here, the guys that are doing,
Sure.
the guys
they're
that
gonna be
actually,
right there with us.
yeah, the guys that actually developed
Yeah.
this product and administer this product all over the world. It's not just gonna be us, it's gonna be them as well, because the more people that are here, that have as much and more knowledge as we do, the easier it's gonna be for us to come up with what we hope is a permanent solution, you know.
What is your expected cost?
Somewhere between $50,000 and $100,000. We'd have to do some more research on, walk along through. Get back to the map.
You want to go back to Mount?
So what we're gonna have to do is go back through here, come through here, and do basically something similar to a DCP test. It's called a deep cone penetrometer. So we'll drive down here maybe every 5 or 10 feet, and we'll see if we find any more spots, right? And then once we know that, then it'll determine if we're gonna have to use any more material. If not, then it'll be somewhere in there. We'll do the numbers, and then we'll be happy to give you guys a more specific answer.
Are you gonna have to drain the lake down further to do your test out where the water's at, to drop the pins in?
Oh, it'll be down before then.
It's gonna be within about 6 feet of the center of the sinkhole. So we'll go in either direction with the DCP test, or something like a DCP test, and go from there.
You're not going to close any of the roads, will you?
No, sir.
No, I'm asking because I already hear Kenny and all the other people saying, well, you went to the meeting, how many of the roads are gonna close for how long? And yeah.
Yeah, it'll be a normal day when we're there.
It'll be 30 seconds bringing the stuff in, 30 seconds taking it out. We're good.
When you, because this was with colder water, what if that little smaller piece gets hit by more water? Does it expand further, or is it now solidified?
So what happens is this sticks to anything,
Right.
right? And that's the part about it, is it's gonna be expanding most likely the size of of these they're gonna probably be thin and wide, right? Would you say so, Mark? Is that probably accurate? So it's like cracks that are running through rock, right? And so what it does is, as it's going through those cracks and this stuff is reacting, it's gonna be bonding. And as it's bonding, it's not only bonding with itself, but everything else around it.
Okay, so it is a permanent bond.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, that was the question.
To help answer your question, it's gonna build off of itself. It's gonna push until it hits something stable, and then it's gonna build back off of that. So it's kind of layering.
So it's not gonna grow anymore?
No, once it reaches its expansion, you know, the liquefied part before the catalyst sets off, it's gonna build off of what's already expanded and form around that and push out and up to fill the voids and.
They're gonna push a bunch of cholesterol down a bunch of arteries.
Basically,
It's like spray foam insulation effectively.
Yeah.
Correct. It's
Yeah.
polyurethane. It's similar. It is a closed cell product. It's just not environmentally hazardous, and it's
That we know of.
yeah. Well, it's been tested by the ANSI, NSF approved by the FDA, and
And the professor from Virginia Tech has
Joe.
approved of it.
Joe, what is the urgency to decide now?
You can figure.
To the what?
To make a decision now?
Well, the urgency is,
Just the meeting and the,
we just wanna, we wanna do something with that hole. So, you know, our plan would be, we got this going, you know, there is a possibility that, you know, we could get a lot of snow, a lot of rain, lake come back up for a while, so then that would lose that access to be able, because it's very clear that we need the sinkholes in order to do this. If we chose not to do this, then I'm just gonna fill the sinkholes with grout and seal them up and that's it.
And then
okay,
this
so
product.
you
is
wanna
no
get the
longer
sinkholes
available.
closed as soon as
I'd
possible?
like to alleviate that safety hazard
Gotcha.
is what, and take advantage of,
Well, the question there would
Yes,
be
sir.
then is, would it be more prudent to wait for warmer water, warmer weather for
I
you?
don't know.
Or would it matter that much?
it doesn't matter that much. Again, with being able to adjust the catalyst, it's minimal in this situation, in this scenario, because of how far that water is traveling before it exits that we know of, based off of this. And again, that dye test will tell us a lot more. But if we have to, we'll hit it at full catalyst, and it'll be good. I mean, the way this stuff works is absolutely amazing. I mean, it'll be drawing moisture out of the air and starting to harden as we're doing it by the pond. You can see right now, it's already created a film over top of this. You know, it's drawing everything. So it's going to react without a problem in plenty of time.
So how much pressure does this put on the existing rock? Is it gonna be like, that spray foam insulation pushing the drywall out and cracking more rock, or is it just enough
No,
pressure to
this
fill the hole in?
there's a lot of different lines that this company has. They have a structural and a non-structural product. This is a non-structural product. It's called a void fill. So it fills voids and it compresses, but it doesn't compress to where it's strong enough to do some damage. So we have another line of products that we can inject into the ground and it actually lifts concrete. So it's an incredible. They have an incredible full line of products.
Do you all on your site happen to have any videos of where you've been in the process or of doing this to?
I don't.
If you get ours, would you do it? Just for out of curiosity?
Absolutely. Yeah.
I
we
mean,
would love to.
No
do that.
extra charge. I mean, it would be just something for informational purposes for the residents. If we go this route, not only for the residents, but with
For the other public that we could possibly help in the
Correct.
future. Yeah, no, that would be. I'm glad you brought that up because we were going to actually ask the same thing if we could be allowed to do video of it, because we've been meaning to do it, but everybody just gets so caught up. Sometimes
I'd ask if we could barter a little bit, but that's not my job to do that.
Royalties though, right?
No royalties, just, let's just, you know.
Depends on the YouTube hits, you know? So,
What concerns are there for anybody's wells that might be on that lake that might be connected to underground there?
again, based off of the test that we do, I don't have any concern because this is, all the other, excuse me, all of the other homes are above, here and here, right? And none of the wells goes down, what's the average here?
Mine's 200 foot.
150 feet, yeah, okay. So if it's going down 200 feet, right, and you're up on this ridge up here, you're still, what, at least 350 feet above?
Thank you.
Yes, but there's a house.
Right here.
Right here. Use this one right here and show you. There's a house
One right
there.
here.
I think to answer your question, it's gonna be very targeted
That-
within the
That's why I
pathway.
asked
Yeah.
the question. a minute
Those
ago.
two sinkholes. The goal is to hit that path and follow that.
Yeah, and that's part of the injection process with the water and with the speed this is, it's just gonna follow that path. And it's gonna do that. So,
To give you an idea, when we did the compaction grouting, they were hitting that thing with like 100, 200 PSI. So when they were hammering it down, it was, and then it was pushing, and we really, really, in today's world, probably wouldn't be the greatest idea, because there's a lot more potential, I think, to cause a well problem when we did it back in '08 and.
Right, but
Yeah.
most of that was on the dam side.
It was.
Over on that side, the large wood area, you say it was like 46 feet below the dam. So if you then count the elevation to those houses on the east side of the lake, that's putting their wells probably same area. So if we have a material that now starts backing up, and stops, it could just as easily start going sideways as it could come back. Is that?
The volume is probably what you're looking at, you can control. though.
yeah, well, we can control the volume and also, correct me if I'm wrong, Mark, but that would make sense if it was like a giant cave, right? But these are small cracks or cracks in the rock.
Let me pause you right there.
Mhm.
I believe we said in the last meeting in November, there was a rather large 8x30 or something like that.
Roughly.
Where,
There was it's an area that it appears to be that, but it's probably not, there's probably a lot of smaller holes through it.
but worst case scenario, it could be. that
It could
size.
be, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so even with something like that, it's based off of where that water is flowing and going. So it's gonna just follow that path and it's gonna back it up and back it up and back it up. And we'll adjust that like we were talking about before. Once that water is slowed from coming out of where we've located its exit, that's when we will adjust it so that it'll be reacting quicker and so that we'll be targeting a specific area.
So it's all about time, because
It
after a
really
certain
is,
amount of
because
time.
I was gonna say, within a matter of minutes, you're damming.
Yeah.
You're stopping, you know what I mean? So the likelihood of it going that
Several
far
miles
down,
that way,
it's,
it won't
yeah, it
happen.
won't happen. It
Well,
can't.
it wouldn't be several miles.
No, but
But still,
yeah,
I
it's
mean,
the distance,
you're
yeah.
not getting 50 feet beyond where you're shooting into the main stream. It is the thing, because it's gonna set off and fill and build back off of that.
So I guess in following that logic, this is actually a sinkhole specific fix. So if we have
For
another
this approach,
sinkhole
yes,
on the lake that's
Right.
draining down a different
Mhm.
channel, we'd have to come back and do it again for.
correct.
Yep, and that's if it's not using that same pathway.
Right.
And it seems from this report that area that you're having the current issues from is all flowing through that. And do we know where it was coming, the water was coming out the first time? Was it coming
Well,
out?
the first time and this time is pretty much in the same exact spot.
So if we time it properly, once we do the dye test, and we start almost all the way in the back there, and then it backs it all the way up, even if there is a spot that is more susceptible to leaks, it's not gonna be able to have the water run off in that same area.
And just so you all know, when we did the fix in '08, when we did that analysis, we did do a dye test from the water in the lake, and it definitely was coming out by the council house and spring box.
Did we,
Yeah.
make any kind of judgment on what the sediment coming into the pond there is coming from?
So, as they explained a little bit, when we did the compaction grouting, over time, the compaction grouting, when it still hits soil, it doesn't do anymore. So it lays up against it and it swells, but not that much. And then over time, it can shrink a little. Water can get behind the concrete and grout. So what happens is, as that's sitting there over years and flow, water will build up pressure and it'll go around it. So that's where what's happening. Just even a couple weeks ago, we had, it was a mud pit coming out of that. I don't know if anybody saw it, was really muddy. Well, what it was, it found a joint and it just started cleaning it out, taking the clay with it.
Wow.
Yeah, and then over a couple, how long did it stay real muddy? About a week?
Yeah, a couple weeks.
Couple weeks, and then it cleared up. And it's been doing that for years. It's just that was a pretty bad joint.
Is that spring at the Clauser House connected to the lake? Or
Yes.
is it different?
Well, if you look at that straight line, this line that's going here, it goes straight to the spring house. It's all connected. Now, so that flow at the spring house, as Kevin and I said briefly, it's not all lake water. There's springs all through the bottom. But that second pond is connected to the same joint that's in the lake. Because we actually had mud water coming out in that the lower pond, 3 months ago?
Yeah, it's about 2 months ago.
Two months ago. So it's all connected. So if we can stop the flow coming out of the lake, there still might be water that comes out by the council house, because there's always been a spring box there. It's definitely connected on that. I mean, it's literally, that red line, it's straight to it. And it runs right along the joint of that geology contact where Mark explained in his report.
I'm just curious whether they shut the water off there.
Now, there's still a lot of water that comes into that spring box. It used to, just so you know, the pipe's only been there since '08.
I was there when I started here, and that was in 08.
Was there? I thought there wasn't a weir there.
Yeah.
Was there always? I didn't think there was a weir.
I'm not sure when it was put in.
Yeah, I think it must have been the early 2000s, because in the 90s it was just a ditch. But we didn't know that all that was connected back then until we had the first sinkhole.
Do you guys plan on adjusting around the siphon pipes? The pipe that was wet from the water that in there?
Not this time.
Might be a good product to use there too.
Did we have any other options that we discussed there at the subcommittee?
Actually,
We do, and we have a report on
Yeah.
that if you're ready.
how about we segue into their, do y'all want to do your subcommittee report?
Yes.
Hi, I'm George Bishop. I got tagged to be the chairperson of the subcommittee. And our charge was to look at the lake and the dam issues and see if there was anything we could do with it. Other committee members, Kenneth Baker, who was absent from our committee, Alec Bowman, Jim Guy, Andrea Poe, and Ms. Sargent stood in because Kenneth was not here, so we had 2 advisory committee members on the committee, the subcommittee. What we had actually looked at, and now we know we don't really have to do, is potential roadways. So we were a little concerned about how we would actually get this thing done. Heavy equipment, we'd have to grade a road in, Kevin's people would have to do that, or we would have to come in from property access, maybe somebody who had a lot would deal with that. So it looks like we don't have to do that at all. That's a cost that we kind of built in, and it's not going to be associated from this point forward. So the things that we looked at were, number one, do nothing. See what happens. We looked at doing a basic plug and then this particular chemical injection process. So the cost of doing nothing, loss of aesthetics, and potential property value. Right? And I think Ms. Jenny came up with the mosquito infestation, right? That kind of thing. If you look at the basic plug, according to the report, we were looking at somewhere around $60,000 maybe to get that correction process could be up to 380,000. Then there was the site access, which we don't have to worry about now, so that would have been to be determined cost. Then we looked at our access, how would we do it? We'd have to do the roadway construction, which we already know we want to do. And then access it through an unimproved or an improved lot, maybe talk to the property owner, see what happens if the county didn't own a particular thing. Then we looked at how we're gonna pay for it, and this was the killer. Our federal and state grants don't work. If we wanted to do that, we would have to open this thing up to the public, and everybody in the world could come in and do whatever they want to do. So we just don't fit that, either one of those grants. So how are we gonna fund it? Well, other than me winning the lottery and just paying for it, we looked at using the reserve fund. Presently, that reserve fund stands at approximately 1.49 million, somewhere between 4.98 and, 1.48 to 1.49. So the recommendation from this subcommittee was pretty simple. Based upon the available information and technology, Lake and Dam Issue Subcommittee recommends the Shawnee Land Sanitary District Advisory Committee move forward with the available chemical injection process in an attempt to repair the lake and utilize funds in the reserve fund to pay for the associated expenditures. Signed by me.
And voted on by the rest of us.
Yes, ma'am.
So George, how did we come up with the 380 number?
In the report there, there's a,
This, the one through
Yes, sir.
4?
yes,
Okay.
right.
Now, there is one thing that Mark can explain. He mentioned a number like 100,000.
Right.
What Mark did was give a conservative number. Let's say they needed to do several dosings. It's possible that we're not gonna need to spend that much. Depending on what they find out. From what I heard, they want to do the least possible to get the fix done.
Right.
So, again, it's not exact science. It's like before, when we did the big project, they said, well, don't spend more than $1 million. So as we got like south of, or north of 800, then it was like, all right, we need to be shutting her down. So, again, I don't think we're gonna spend $380,000, but that was marked as being conservative. They needed to do several dosings, because it sounds like, how much is each dosing, general?
It just depends on how you mix it and based off of the speed of the chemical, of the dye, but probably between 10 and 20 gallons, at a time. If it's a little more rapid, and we can up that to up to 50 gallons. We'd get like a plastic 55-gallon container. We'd mix it together in that, and then we'd pump it and dump it in there in that way. But yeah, I've sent this to a senior guy in Alchemy Speed Tech, the people we purchased the product from. He's been doing this for 30 years almost now, 23 years to be exact. And he said, I've seen stuff just like this before. They did one, there's a report attached that they did one in Colorado, very similar, at the end of this report. And you can see, it's very, very similar, and they were successful. So he's very confident, and so am I, that we can do something here.
Unlike everything else, is there any issue with shortages on obtaining this particular chemical?
No, we were down there in October, and they had about 100,000 gallons in their warehouse. So we're using possibly 500, maybe 550. So there's no shortage at all.
Just had to ask since.
They ship it?
So
No, that's a great question.
Yeah.
So the difference in numbers, you said 50 to 100,000 a little while ago, and then the 380. Was that 50 to 100,000 multiple times, or was that just?
No, that's just a one time. And again, that's based off of us doing some further testing on if there's any other voids in that area by there, but that's a safe number,
Okay.
But you want to go with the higher number because, like I said, you
Yeah,
probably
better
were
safe.
with finance because
Yeah, I get that, but the realistic, it's just like our budget, every year our
Right.
budget has a huge number,
Right,
but every year coming like way under it. So,
right,
you know, I get that, but I don't wanna have the $100,000 turn into a $400,000
exactly,
project.
exactly.
Just because.
Just because.
Because we need, if it does and that's what it takes, that's fine, we just need to be able
it's
to
important
budget
too,
for
whether
that.
you should prepare, you know, and have a contingency plan for, because there's still the unknown factor that none of us are gonna be able to predict out of this. You know, we're gonna do the testing, we're gonna come up and write a concise, detailed proposal for you. Here's what our findings were, here's how many gallons we think it'll take. You know, when you get into it, it could be a different ballgame.
And if there's a change order, you have to validate it anyway,
Correct.
I mean,
Yes, ma'am.
so,
But the question then becomes on our end, less about that is how do we pay for it? Because if the number gets too high, we're dipping below our reserve minimum.
right,
And we're gonna have to look at something like having a bond or something like that instead of just out of our reserve.
Well, I think with the reserve, just about 1.48, 1.49.
Yeah.
I think that gives, with, even if you go with the high number of 380, you're still gonna have over $1 million left in the reserve if you spent all of that. And again, that's why we're here.
Right.
You guys to decide
Right.
what recommendation, you know, my recommendation is that if you're going for it, to go for it, but give us a max number that you're comfortable with, and that's what I'll take to the committee, and that's what we'll take to finance, that's what we'll take to the board, because, you know, once we get the money moved out of, you know, if we get all the way through that process, and I don't know if we go to Public Works, and there might be a sidestep. One thing I was letting the committee know, the subcommittee know, is that you all do have a meeting in early February coming up. So we could go to Public Works, and maybe we tweak things or some other information. We could come back to the committee in February to give an update, because it still won't get to finance. I can come out of Public Works, it doesn't go to finance the third week of February.
Right.
Then they'll decide what meeting they want to take it to the board, because, you know, as you know, you get into March, it's budget season, so.
What is our current budget? This year's budget running? Remember?
It's eight something.
Hold on a second. I just happen to have that available. I always keep a budget book nearby.
Maybe it's 9 something.
So the current,
I think it was 9 something.
It might be 9 and the
Today's
next year's is
current-
8 something.
let me get my eyeballs fixed. So right now, the current budget we're in for 21 was at 998.
And what is 22?
22 come in at 908.
So
And then, just so you all,
we're still just under $1 million.
but what's good to note, I was looking at the latest CAFR, our collectibles is up to almost 880,000 now with the new houses. So I mean, we're getting really close to where we'll be getting the revenue will be, because it's been hanging around 830
Right.
per year.
Okay.
Of course, it's a moving target, but it's tight. And Kevin's all, you know, anticipating, of course, always having savings.
So timeline for, if I could ask a question, overall timeline, knowing the steps that, you know, the committee, everybody has to take, what duration, say,
I have money, if we go positive and everything's green, I'll have money mid-March.
which helps with the weather changing
Yeah.
and improving, you know.
That'd be perfect.
Right, that's
Going
what
in the
I was
spring,
thinking about,
more
going in the
ideal.
spring, when it's
Yeah.
starting to heat up and
So
warm.
what is your timeline from the time we have money?
Within 2 weeks.
Yeah, 2 weeks.
Yeah.
How
It's
quickly
pretty-
does the lake fill up on its own?
Depends on how much it
Depends on
rains.
snow,
Yeah,
rain.
rain and snow.
Generally around March and April is when it comes back
Well, I was
up.
gonna say April typically is the wet time into March.
The worst time I've seen it raise 8 feet in 2.5 hours.
That's quite.
I'm just saying, I was here when they did that. But that was 7 inches of rain in 2 hours. It came up 8 feet, but.
Pretty sure the dial come out the other end in that situation.
All right. So, we have any more
Well,
discussion?
what do you think?
Because you'll call if you have people that want to speak to the matter, then you need to let them speak. And then we go to discussion because the motion has been made and it's already been seconded because there are other people on the committee to do that.
Okay, so
So we can go straight to discussion
with,
and you can open public comment.
okay. You good with that? Very good. All right, I guess
I
we'll
didn't hear
call.
that, so you'll have to just go ahead.
Oh,
No, go ahead.
I'm sorry. It's like I said, I'm still learning this process. And I just, I guess the first person on there, I can't. Think so. Okay, Jenny, I think you're going to speak for yourself and
For
for.
Ted. For, Madeline. And they would love to have an email address that they can, contact you with their thoughts. Of course, they're in support of the lake, we're on the lake. That's why they bought their house, they're at 121, Cherokee Trail, and we're at 105 Cherokee Court, so we're on the lake. We watched the sinkhole grow across the lake. Luckily, we don't see the lake disappearing to anybody else or the people in the little white cottage, which now have a lot of beach property. But we feel that this is an important asset and that it's so many people utilize this. During the summer of COVID, the people were on it all the time. So we would like to see the lake investment of whatever it takes, 300,000, to be utilized. And also, as a side thing, my daughter-in-law contacted one of her professors, who is the guy who did Flint, Michigan water, and this is one of the best products to utilize in an area of some drinking water.
Okay. Okay. Anyway. But you probably won't. Could do a,
I'm not sure we need to worry about that, actually. Just
Okay.
have the next person.
There's not many.
Yeah.
okay,
You-
Jenny, you have my email address. We've emailed back and forth. You can give them my email address if you'd
I
like.
appreciate that. Street and down the street.
Okay,
Appreciate it.
okay. All right, we have Mr. Nelson, I believe it is. That would be you?
No.
You're good?
Yep.
Okay,
I asked for the questions were answered by the gentleman.
okay, okay. I guess that takes care of that. And
Oh, yeah.
Do we have to ask them to leave or can they stay?
I mean, that's why
They can stay.
my grandson's come up here.
Okay, basically, he presented the subcommittee report.
They can be working.
We've looked at that, and
Yeah.
I guess,
So the motion for the board, the advisory committee,
so do we have a motion?
we do.
Okay,
Well, yeah, the motion is to use the,
Reserve fund up to $380,000.
I don't know, I think it definitely needs to be fixed. Probably have to put this out to bid, is that correct? Or is this a
So,
special
now, we have it
product?
within the contract where Viola's gonna be in control, working with American Concrete on
Okay.
their subs. But what we'll do, for disclosure, what we'll do is if this committee, Public Works, we'll get a full-blown proposal from them, highlighting everything, and I think we could easily get that by the end of the month, a proposal on that type of cost, and then we could make sure everybody here knows what that's gonna be. Even we could have a report by your February meeting. And then, once they appropriate the money, then I would issue a task order And I would suggest, what I'd like to do is if we get into, if this happens, then we'll keep working for updates, and it might be where we meet, like, when they know they're coming, it's like everybody's gonna be ready to talk through this and communicate.
Okay,
So the question here is are we comfortable with that max number?
I'd like to cut it down. $100,000, if we double that, if it goes beyond that, it's going sideways, and we need to reevaluate.
but the issue with that is like I said, you anticipate higher, but if we don't use it, the money goes back. Because it's a drawn, you saw just from this what the process would be. Then you're going to delay it, and even if you had money in another fund and wanted to transfer, you can't, because if I recall correctly, you can only transfer a certain amount without going back through the finance committees and all the other committees, again. If you were, I look at it like if you were getting a home equity loan and you wanted to do some things. Well, I might not need this much, but I better do it now. Otherwise, you're going to have to go back and pay closing costs and whatnot again to do it. But then, and the money doesn't get spent, it goes back in that reserve fund. That's my suggestion. That's saying, go ahead and ask for that amount, because it's not used. It goes back. It doesn't get spent elsewhere.
So I guess in the committee meeting, how, that 380, what was that based on?
The report that we saw.
It's right, just so you know, Barry, it came
Right.
from this report.
Right. I just remembered you pointed that out.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think that anybody was jumping up and down to go spend $380,000.
Right. The only concern there is if it hits that mark, recomping, that's definitely gonna be a raise in rates immediately to have to get back some. But,
Well, at this time, just so you know, there's not gonna be any budget
right.
increase in next year.
Right.
I mean, the soonest it would be, and there would be other factors, I think, if we decide to go that route.
Right, but you're talking at 25% of the reserve right there. As it stands, even with that, I'm good moving forward with what we have. If he says it's 50 to 100,000, and even if it goes double that, hopefully it won't.
I hope not either. Very confident it won't.
That's basically our road maintenance for a year that we're just gonna have to ask Kevin to minimize and do what we can there.
Well, I think you already took out the tar and chip for this year, if I recall correctly. Which,
Next year, FY
Yeah,
'23.
it's
okay, next year.
bouncing ahead of you, yeah. But
Sorry.
yeah, I think, that's my comments on this.
Well,
You can call the vote.
do we need a second, right?
No, ma'am, we already
A
have
second? All right, I guess we have a vote on it. All that vote aye?
Aye.
Aye. I guess it's unanimous
Any
then.
opposed?
Any opposed?
Yeah, motion passes.
Motion passes, thank you. So,
Can I park in
So everybody just knows the next step. Rhonda's gonna send a report from this meeting to me, and then I will attach it. And this is the main discussion at the next Public Works Committee meeting at the end of January. And then
When is that?
anybody's free to come.
When is that meeting?
Let me get you that date.
it's last Tuesday, is it the last Tuesday?
It's always the last Tuesday, but I'll give you the date. It's gonna be January the 25th at 8 a.m. in the Public Works Conference Room.
We can go, we just can't speak.
If you'd like to.
Sure, we'll be happy.
I think if they call for you to speak, you can,
Oh,
but
okay.
generally speaking.
Yep. There's somebody there that would love to ask you some questions.
Okay.
He's got to prepare you for it though.
And I guess, well, I guess if there's no
I think
further
you're going that way,
discussion,
Stu.
we'll adjourn the meeting. So, meeting adjourned. Thank you, gentlemen, for, appreciate it.
Thank you.